Thank you, Chairman Banning, Representative Cook, and members of the Education Committee. Our input is based on the concept that we have two policy directives coming together and sort of in conflict. We have school choice, which is the law of the land in Indiana, versus, for our membership, a request for efficiencies. The Indiana General Assembly has continually asked our members for small and rural schools to become more efficient, consolidate, find ways, become more efficient entities. We support and have been asking for a provision in 1641 that provides an expedited process for selling or closing a building. We think it's good policy to allow districts to right-size their buildings based on their student population. This current law that requires a sale or transfer to another entity or lease for $1, we feel like is blocking some schools from closing facilities because they fear this. In Sullivan County, there was a school that went through 2 or 3 years of pain of closing a school. It was a very tough decision to close Union High School. 15 or so patrons got together and they started a new school corporation almost. And it's thriving. Duggar Union, it is a charter school, and it's within the confines of the Northeast School Corporation. So people have seen this and they were like, wow, you went through the pain of getting smaller and more efficient. Their enrollment went from 1,200 to 800, and Duggar Union's doing okay. It's up to 400. But it's sort of conflicting that model of we want choice, and again, it's seen through the lens for our urban settings, but we also want you to be efficient. So there's no easy answers, but we do support the concept of shortening this 2-year window. If there could be an expedited process, if I'm a small school and I have declining enrollment, it's in the best mode for our taxpayers to close this facility. Let's work to do that. We have a couple recommendations. We have concerns of automatically selling or leasing the facility to another entity. It makes no sense for our members to sell something. There's some confusion on land. You could sell a building, but if you close a high school in a rural area, that land has value. It's a 60 to 80 acre campus. Farmland's $15,000 an acre. That's $1 million in value sitting there for a company that could go back on the tax rolls. So we'd like some clarification if this bill moves forward, could you do something with the building, but that land could still become taxable land that goes back on the tax rolls, is profitable for the local entity. The state board has developed some criteria for district reorganization. We think it has application in this. If you're in a small and rural area and someone wants to break off, the state board said, number one, in district reorganization, it should be financially affordable to the change that's occurring, and the educational opportunity should be equal to what they received. We think this is a good standard and may have applicability. We have some more input on that, but those are the provisions we support and would like to discuss some more.
Thank you, Chris. Questions for Chris? Representative Delaney.
Yes, thank you. I'm really trying to put myself in the place of a small or rural school district, which I assume you represent. So if they choose to close a school because maybe they don't need it or it's not efficient, they run the risk that somebody then picks it up and becomes a charter school.
As public officials, you know every decision you make, 50% of the people like it, 50% don't. It's a 2-year process of closing a facility. It's contentious. No matter what, someone's going to be upset. And I get it. If you're closing, especially the high school, that small town is losing its identity. It's losing economic opportunity. It's tough. And so, yes, under current code, that another group of people could come in and say, I want that. We also recommend that maybe there's a provision that if someone wants to start a charter, they send a letter directly to the DOE. For our entity, for our members, it's probably going to be somebody in the community who wants to start the charter. We recommend you just carbon copy the school district so it doesn't have to sit at the DOE for 30 days waiting for it to know. It's probably not going to be an outside entity that comes in and see any profit margins or anything there for that community that makes it viable. It's going to be people in that community who are vested that may want to start a charter. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, and I think that would be a positive component of this. If you also put in the provision that's in this bill, that if you have a referendum, it has to be shared with the charter, how is that going to impact the small school district board when they're sitting there looking at this idea?
Well, that's my original statement. I said this is conflicting with the concept of choice versus efficiencies. And so if you're telling them to be smaller, be right sized, be more efficient, you would probably be closing something so you don't have to have a referendum. But if then later you went and had a referendum for a construction process, I guess you would have to include them. But it sort of conflicts those two policy ideas: be efficient, but also support the inefficiency of the double entity. And it's a tough question.
So you
We would not be in favor of that language.
track it through, so the small school district ends up, in effect, creating a charter school in its district. If it then wants a referendum, it has to include this competing charter district. And in addition, if our idea is to consolidate and have fewer school districts, we've gone in exactly the opposite direction.
Yeah, that's our point. What we've been asking for is this is hurting the ability of some groups to take on consolidation because they go through the pain of it and then they're just going to be back to where they were because there's an opportunity to start something for people who want another school in that setting.
Yeah, so this is really very important because we're in the middle of this big fight in this committee about how to pay teachers more and how to make sure the money goes to the classroom. But the way this system could work in the small communities that have declining enrollments is that when you try to deal with your declining enrollment by closing a school, you end up with that school, in fact, not closed. You end up with public property that was controlled by the school board now being controlled by a separate profit or not-for-profit entity. If you choose to have a referendum to solve your problems and get teacher pay up, you have to share that money with your competition.
I thought it was just the building part, but I might be wrong.
Well, I read it as the building part. I don't know how that's restricted. This gets very complicated.
Yeah, you're right.
But thank you. You've helped me a great deal.
Representative Smith.
Yes, I haven't highlighted this point in this bill, but I want your opinion on it. It says that if a school corporation doesn't comply with the requirement to make a vacant or unused school building available to a charter school and they sold it, for example, they didn't close it, they sold it before they closed it, okay, then what would happen is that they would have to put that money that they were trying to generate for the operation of their school district, they would have to put it in the school facility assistance program for charter schools. What's your viewpoint on that?
Well, I think that's putting some teeth and accountability into following the law that's created.
Where the money goes, though, once again, the money is going to charter schools when the traditional public schools need the money too. Once again,
So the penalty would go to support charter schools all
Right,
through the state. So
but the point is that I'm trying to make is that going with the premise that was offered, and I was here and opposed to the charter school movement. The problem is that they argue for competition. You're supporting the competition, and whether we know it or not, they're all. We have created competition. We didn't have competition before, and we have it. I don't believe in supporting the competition. I'm not a win-win kind of person. I got to win. I mean, I win at all costs. I want win-win for most people, but here I become the loser.
well, school choice is mixed. Some of our members very much benefit from it if they're near a large metropolitan area. I'm going to be honest. Many of our schools are benefiting from school choice. If they're not near a metropolitan area, they're taking 5 from their neighbor, and the neighbor's sending them 5, and it's kind of a wash. So school choice is the law of the land. As far as commenting on the accountability, I mean, there's accountability in the law. It's just putting some teeth into, hey, follow the law, or there's this accountability measure. I can't really
Representative
speak to that.
Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those small schools in rural areas that are shut down, using Representative Delaney's scenario, and another entity comes in and opens them up, and parents choose to send their children there. Okay, there are no students being denied an education in any of these scenarios, correct?
One of the concerns that's expressed to me from members of the Indiana General Assembly is that small and rural schools don't have the course offerings. Indiana Chamber put out a report about a year ago and highlighted and said the problem with your small schools is their course offerings are not robust enough to offer the needs of the 21st century. We don't totally agree with that, but if you're saying these small schools don't have the staffing and the ability to offer the needs, if you're further subdividing it, it's sort of going against the argument that we need to become more efficient, we need a little bit more robust offering. It's just kicking the can. We'll use Northeast School Corporation in Sullivan County, where this has already occurred. They were at 1,200. They decided to close the building. They closed the building. Grace College came in, made it a charter. It's Duggar Union. Great people. I know the principal there. They're good people. They care for kids. They're trying to do good things. They're about 400. Northeast School Corporation's down to about 800, and it's in the paper. They've had year-long discussions about what do they do next. They closed the building. They went from 1,200 to 800 in 5 years, accelerated by the charter school. Now we have two entities. We have a school corporation with 800, and we have a charter school corporation, in essence, that's 400. Both are offering an education, but if we're operating from the parameters that are given to me by the Indiana General Assembly, we want you to be larger. We want you to offer more robust curriculum. I would say the opportunity to offer the robust curriculum the Indiana General Assembly wants us to have is not occurring if you're subdividing into smaller entities. If we're okay with that entity, that's fine. Then don't refer to our organization and tell us you need to get bigger and you're an inefficient model and we shouldn't fund you, because we're saying it's okay. We want choice. We want to fund caring charter schools that are providing an education. Well, we're that too. We're small. Does that make sense? I don't know if I answered
Sure,
your question.
but those 400 students that the government-run school lost, those 400 students are getting a good education according to what you just said, correct?
Yeah, they're in a place where people care about them and it's connected to their community.
Okay, so what if we were to extend charter school rules to government-run schools?
But currently exist, I believe, a school.
So you guys can compete with charters?
I don't understand the question. A public school could turn itself into a charter school. I think that's allowed by Indiana code.
Okay, I'm missing the
That's
problem
correct.
here then, unless we're more concerned about control than we are actually educating the student. Because again, no student is being denied an education in either charter or government-run education. Okay, but it's the parents choosing where they want to, the type of education they want their child to have.
Representative Baining, did you want to weigh in on that?
School choice is the law of the land. I agree, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, 2 points. First off, there's been some things in this committee that are not accurate. Charter schools have to be nonprofit. They cannot be for-profit. They can be operated. They can have an education management organization that could provide profit. But we also have, in our traditional public schools, we have entities that are for-profit. So I think it irritates me a little bit when people throw out for-profit, not-for-profit. The flip side is you made the statement, and to kind of carry on with Representative Lucas' statement, that the General Assembly has policies pushing you to consolidate or whatever.
Become more efficient.
Be more efficient is a lot different than, you mentioned rigor and things like that. And you and I have talked about that, but I don't think there's anything out there on the books today that we're saying you have to, consolidate, merge together.
You're correct.
And I think the Indiana Chamber brought up the data just to kind of reflect this is, the way Indiana is today.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to have more opportunities for those kids, we need to be thinking about ways to maybe be more efficient or provide more synergies together that would provide some of that. But in the school that you talked about, the rural charter school, it's not the one in Shelby County. Is it
No, this one's in Sullivan County.
Is it a K-12 system or a K-8? I know that there's a charter school, I think the one rural charter school that I'm aware of is in Shelby County. I believe it's elementary. It is not K-12. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there's one down by the Ohio River, down in southern Indiana. There's one down there that's K-8. Again, they're good people that care about kids. I just want to point out there's just two conflicting policies heading here: school choice versus efficiency and robust curriculum. And we often get stuck on what it looks like for Marion County and Lake
That's
County.
where I'm challenging you. I don't think that policies, because there is no policy requiring you to merge, to come together. I mean, we've had
I
discussions.
accept that.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Goodrich.
Yeah, just maybe a couple quick questions. So the 400 student charter school that you have, that you keep addressing, I assume the way you're talking that offers a robust curriculum and that's efficient. And my question is what holds? I mean, because you said you were losing students, but the parents choose to send the kids to the 400-person charter school. So when you look at that, what is it that they can offer that the 800-person school can't? And then second to that is if they would pass a referendum in that area itself, if you've got a third of the students in that school, why wouldn't that referendum go to that school?
Your first question is, would a school corporation of 400 offer a robust curriculum? I would say they
No,
do.
I'm sorry. What I asked is the charter school that you addressed, I wanted to know if you thought that was efficient, because I'm really myself conflicted about how efficiency and choice are conflicting, because I mean, I run a business, I have to do that every day, and I understand school's not a business. But
Yeah, I would
my
say
point is
that
I
it
continue
is.
to hear this efficiency is a conflict with choice, which it confuses me. But I just wondered, is the 400-person school?
Yeah, I know of many 400 student school corporations that are efficient. There's some in Randolph County. Donnie Bozeman has been down here and testify. He's done a great job and has an efficient organization. Yes, I think it's possible to have an efficient school corporation or a charter school of about 400. I think those are very similar organizations that offers a robust curriculum.
Thank you, Chris. I think one of the things he's trying to address that he mentioned earlier was the sentimentality that 400 that splintered off were upset they closed the building. So I just want to say I've been through that myself twice, and so you get as far as community split over the building being closed, and so they had the means at least to go and start their own charter school. I would have countered if I'd have been superintendent. I would have tried to do my own charter school within Northeast, and then had all of that coming under one roof. But that's
That is
just
an
neither
option.
here nor there. But that is how it works. Thank you, Chris. You brought a good perspective, a whole different
Thank you for the
avenue with
opportunity to
small
testify.
schools.
If I could help in any way.